Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode 411. It's information, Geeks in Space special today. I'm Rob.
411. I get it.
411, and I'm here today with you. Just heard the voice of Chris DeBona.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris DeBona.
And Rob Roseboom.
Hey, I'm Rob Roseboom.
So when you're,
it looks like I have a receding hairline, which I guess I kind of do.
don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, when your computer, you decide to reboot your computer a full 40 minutes before you want to record, and then your computer says, hey, it's going to be 38 minutes before you have me back. That's stupid.
That is stupid.
And is this your Mac PowerBook?
This is the 9-year-old MacBook that is like my primary computer because I don't really need a computer for anything these days.
That was like the last one running the Motorola processors, right?
And yeah, no, this is still running System 7.
System 7. PowerPC, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I get it. I have a piece of shit computer that barely works that I love to write on. For whatever reason, it just feels nice in my lap. You can barely read the keys anymore. But, you know, if you turn on the camera, it overheats. It disconnects all the time, but I love writing.
20 years ago? When did you get this monstrosity?
Oh, it's got to be. It's over a decade for sure. But,
is it one of the Sony Vios that I prepped for y'all when I worked at VA Linux?
I still have mine.
No.
Oh my God!
No.
Seriously, that was a nice computer for its time. You know,
At the time, it was the best tiny Linux-capable machine on the market,
Yeah.
by no small margin.
I remember installing Linux and all those things.
Yeah, it was a bitch to get Linux.
Yeah.
Let's see, gentlemen. I know that you guys' Bitcoin wallets are swollen with the proceeds of your extensive mining. And I got some good news for you.
Please.
That there's a bill up, I think it's in the House, to exempt virtual currency from being
capital
taxed.
gains.
Really?
I think all the Ayn Randians are like, you know, like you shouldn't tax my Bitcoin. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it limits it to $200 transactions.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't read it, and I assume that there's a reason that you couldn't just say sell all of your Bitcoin $199 at a time and avoid taxes. I don't know what the rules of that sort of thing are, but I do know that Rob, who was the weirdo gun guy that you interviewed, the McAfee? He said that Bitcoin are going to be worth $1 million per coin in the next year or two.
So hodl.
Well, when has that guy ever been wrong?
Never.
So,
maybe when he was murdering people.
I thought
allegedly.
Allegedly. Maybe when he was having sex with that ostrich.
Allegedly's. Yeah. I mean, it does address a key problem, which is that in order for Bitcoin to be useful, you need to figure out an easy point of sale mechanism. And there's actually ways to do that, right? You can have a credit card or a debit card or whatever that has cash that uses Bitcoin as a currency store. But you can't, then every single transaction has to be filed like a stock trade.
Well, I mean, that is inherently the nature of Bitcoin. Everything has to be ledgered across the entire network. So, yeah, you know, so that's one of the reasons why it takes so darn long to do everything. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, you know, Bitcoin news, it's just, it's like watching, I don't know, it's like watching bad television, you know, like a rerun from the 80s that you didn't like in the first place. And you're like, why am I watching? Yeah, maybe Alf, maybe Small Wonder, you know, it's just not good, you know?
Good call.
It's just not good. And it consumes time that could be spent like watching modern bad television, you know?
I love the idea of Bitcoin so much.
What's not to love? Cryptography, virtual currency, economics, right? Super fun.
Decentralization. There's an anti-authoritarian
Russian mobsters selling extortative drugs over the dark web via Bitcoin. I mean, it's every bad thing we've learned about the internet in one fell swoop.
Don't forget, hugely environmentally wasteful.
Oh yeah, let's not forget that. I mean, it's
but let me tell you, at the end of the year, if I use a Bitcoin to buy me a mocha venti latte at Starbucks using some credit card provided to me by one of the online wallet companies, I shouldn't have to file a line in my taxes that says I had a $1.07 profit on a $2.99 transaction. That's stupid.
Yeah. Let's move on. We can talk about literally anything else.
Well, the thing is that the next one on the list is Terry Jones, and that's kind of
R.I.P. buddy.
Yeah.
Rest in pieces. I mean, what do you say?
He wasn't in the top half of the Pythons, but he was good.
Yeah, he was pretty great though. So who doesn't adore Terry Jones?
And as a whole, I mean, is there any comedy troupe that is more affected sort of our lives and culture of our time? No, they're
the
fantastic.
Holy Grail alone, which I guess technically didn't Jones and Gilliam co-direct that one? That's
a good question.
Didn't Jones direct Life of Brian?
Yes, that was his big achievement.
Yeah, there was always rivalry between the two of them who got to be the director when it came to the films. Monty Python and the Holy Grail was one of the 6 VHS tapes, 7 VHS tapes
they wore the hell out of
throughout the entire years of dorm life, and then well into Geek House too. So it was basically the Star Wars trilogy, the Holy Grail, Life of Brian, Aladdin, and the Muppet Christmas Carol, and that was basically all Dave DiMaggio and I had in our room for 3 years.
Hurts, brother.
Also, growing up for me, it was one of the Monty Python was a window into different countries' television for the first time, because PBS would play that and Blackadder.
That Doctor Who and Blackadder.
Doctor Who, occasionally a Masterpiece Theater or something.
Those shows always, I mean, even as a kid, you knew something was weird about those shows because they were all shot in PAL. So it looked different. And, as a kid, you don't necessarily, as an adult, I see PAL and I see you look cheap. And as a kid, I didn't see that. It was just different.
You look British. Yeah.
Right? You look British.
French.
Anyway, that was a sad one. There's a Lego, officially it looks like it's coming out, a Lego International Space Station model.
That is exciting. How many pieces is it?
Less than 1,000.
Oh, really? Oh, it's more like an architecture piece then.
Yeah, but it does have a little mini space shuttle.
And a little Canadarm.
Little tiny Canadarm. Go Canada. Thank you for giving us Trailer Park Boys, Letterkenny, and the space shuttle arm.
Yep.
Does it come with a little teeny treadmill?
Or I don't know where they'd put it. I think it's smaller. It doesn't have an open tube.
You're talking about the little Colbert thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that they had some acronym for Colbert for their when they shipped up the Colbert treadmill?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was, but
the other one that I had on my list, which is kind of weird, but apparently Bezos got his cell phone hacked by MBS.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have been talking about this for a while, but I guess the Washington Post did a whole story about it, and then the Saudis were like, "This was not us. This was somebody else," and then everyone's bringing up them murdering, the reporter, and they're like, you have no credibility, and it's completely possible that they had a hand in it, is my opinion. I mean,
So just in a random week, I get a fairly substantial number of texts from random phone numbers that are basically trying to get me to click on a strange link. And while I don't know what the current vulnerabilities are for my particular device. I do know that the fact that these are being sent out at the frequency that they're being sent out means that they're working somewhere, which tells me there are vulnerabilities in the wild that are so serious that randos are clicking on rando links and getting their phones owned in a way that is financially lucrative to criminals.
Well,
if all of that is true, then getting a link in the article, Bezos said that he clicked on a link that he got directly from MBS, like over WhatsApp. And so therefore, with all of the additional information that MBS would have in that context, you have to assume that this would be trivial to actually do.
So, yeah, here's the thing. Well, you know, the whole John Podesta emails, butter email.
Sure.
You know, he had two-factor authentication installed.
Mm-hmm.
And he was literally walked through the two-factor authentication by the people who are trying to compromise his account. And it's like, people who should know better and even have training on how to know better, they fall for these things. It is not uncommon.
Well, what doesn't help is the security theater specifically associated with the two-factor, because SMS is such a vulnerable system to begin with.
Well, even if you know, I don't know if Podesta had SMS or if he had a device security, you know, key like a YubiKey or a Titan key. But yeah, it's really interesting that people are willing to go through a lot of things they should really get their hackles up about doing.
Yeah.
You know, you know. But yeah, no, like the SMS attacks on prominent Bitcoiners. I think we talked about this in a previous episode.
It's a thing, man.
Well, they had an employee at one of the wireless carriers, and he was intercepting SMSs so they could take ownership of their Coinbase accounts and their other accounts. And it was really something.
But you don't even
lost millions. What's that?
And you're talking about people who should know better, right? Think about all the people who don't know better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think very much about, you know, every single person alive over the age of, let's say, 60. And that's a totally random line to draw in the sand, but I deal on a fairly regular basis with a number of people who are over 60, and I tell you that any one of them could be scammed in like 50 different ways, especially if they answer their phone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
in fact, I just got a spam from the IRS telling me that they're willing to settle with me for my back tax, or else I will go to the jail.
Oh, the jail, huh?
The jail.
I hate to go to that jail.
And I honestly thought, listening to it, thank God my mom didn't answer this phone, because she would be on the phone with me. Oh my God, the IRS is putting me in jail. What do I do? I already gave them my social security number.
Yep. Here's one. Hi, it's the new year. We are offering higher approvals and lower rates. Come work with us directly and save money.
It's mostly, for me right now, it's related to the stuff I'm getting is Medicare and Social Security. So it's, and this is just the random texts that I'm getting. So it is clearly intentionally targeting the elderly. And I know that's the easy, vulnerable population, the less likely to be tech savvy. But I got to tell you, man, I am at least reasonably tech savvy, and I can think of a number of ways that you could fool me. And I mean, it starts with even stupid things like caller ID. I mean, that's not reliable. I don't think people understand that.
Yeah, they don't.
Well, it's not only that they're not very tech savvy, it's that quite often these people have big pots of money, you know, maybe not enough money to sustain them the rest of their lives, but they are sitting on, you know, substantial amounts of money usually that they are hoping that will get them through all of their retirement.
And this kind of elder abuse is just rife, and it's often not even illegal. You know, it's like all the reverse mortgages, which kind of turn out to be a scam anyway. The insurance scams, the selling of insulated garage doors.
Don't get me started on the time that I literally had to shoo people off of my in-laws' property because they were trying to sell them asphalt. And no joke, they are like, they go from house to house telling them, we have a truck of hot asphalt from a job that we had nearby, and if you use it, we will give you a deal. And it's not like a good service. It's not a quality product, and they're not going to stand by it or anything. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, before my parents died, they fell for one with the insulated garage door scam. And those people wanted to keep on billing them. And so I just called the sheriff, and I called the fraud department there. And I did everything I could to shut them down. Of course, I shut down all the credit cards and the rest. That was fine. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, we only got ripped off to the tune of $1,200. Sounds like a bargain, you know?
Yeah. They didn't get your checking account. They just got, they didn't get your Social Security for the rest of your life. They just got what you had in your checking account.
And they taped up a bunch of damn aluminum foil in my mom's garage. And I'm like, this isn't helping, you know?
Well, maybe to keep the spying out.
It's just so dumb, you know?
It's like your house is Better Call Saul season 1 with
no, it really was. You know, I'm like, this isn't making it cooler or warmer.
All right. The insulation isn't any better, but for sure they can't see you with the satellites now.
Yeah, right. The Major League Baseball satellite that's reading my thoughts, that one? Yeah.
So here's an interesting bit, and I try not to talk about my kids' stuff, but one of my kids has been asking about The Simpsons for a while.
Yeah, Laz's been asking about Rick and Morty.
Oh, that's a way better choice. So they've been watching Futurama, which is actually easier. It's got more adult humor, but the references are all kind of sci-fi and nerdy, so that has a specific appeal in my household. But they've been asking about The Simpsons, and so last night, for the first time in their lives, we ended up watching like 4 episodes of The Simpsons, just because.
Which one?
Well, I was picking ones that I kind of liked. We watched the I Choo Choo Choose You Ralph Wiggum episode.
Okay.
Marge versus the monorail. And the one where Bart goes and works for the crime syndicate and works for the mafia. So I had a list that I was keeping of things that I had to explain to my children last night because they watched The Simpsons, and these are terms that they would not otherwise know. The first thing that I had to explain that was the other thing, is that Treehouse of Horror episodes are non-canonical. And this was a good discussion. My children are old enough now to understand that a show has canon, and that but The Simpsons in particular, like, they don't necessarily understand that Maude Flanders is going to die in like whatever season 8 or whatever when the actress demanded more money. But now they now understand that when Kang and Kronos stomp over the city and use lasers to blow up town hall and stuff, that's not canon. That's just silly fun stuff. But last night I had to explain Dutch angles. I had to explain Adam West. Adam West. He had a cameo in one of these episodes. I had to explain quota hiring. And I had to explain that the term Don is a title applied to a mafia boss. And therefore, I then also had to explain The Godfather.
Right.
So all I'm saying is that there is a tremendous amount of pop culture wrapped up into The Simpsons, even just like a couple of episodes. Yeah. And a 10-year-old has none of it. And it's really weird.
Yeah, we ended up watching Godfathers 1, 2, and then I let her watch 3, my daughter. She wanted to make sure she had that nailed before she left for college. And I'm like, okay, sure.
All right, dude.
You know? Yeah, man. Yeah, there's a lot of Simpsons out there, too. It had a huge impact, on the culture. So I have described no less than 3 times to people what Crisis on Infinite Earths is, what its role was in the comic book universe, and what they've been doing. Because I finally finished the 5 episode arc crossover, and it was fine.
Yep, pretty much. Like all CW. Well, like 50% of the CW shows, they are fine.
honestly, I have to agree. I don't remember who it was on the channel who was talking about this, but every time they cut to Batwoman, it's just like it goes more towards the bad, you know. I'm just like,
I mean, that whole story arc is famous not because it's good, but just because it was a giant event that reset all the other stories, right?
Right, so, and it was the duct tape around how messed up that 5 decades of cruft
of canon.
It's not Chris Claremont's Daredevil, it's not The Dark Knight Returns or anything.
Frank Miller.
It's just we just decided to make everything in the same world because it's getting way too confusing. We have 1,800 different Earths that everyone's writing about. Let's make just one for a while.
And to the credit of the CW, they had precisely the same problem, and it's cool that they solved it in the same way. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, Legends of Tomorrow was really great because when they came back from the break, every single person was like, "Where did you go? Oh yeah, where were you? Oh, I was at the crossover." I was like, "Man, I skipped the crossover last year."
That was really funny.
They all refer to it.
Yeah,
great.
I wanted to be in the crossover. Darn it,
I do not have the same love for Heroes of Tomorrow that you do, Rob Malda. I think it misses most of the time. But this last episode after the crisis, I thought was great.
I think Elongated Man is a very good example of why the Fantastic Four can never, ever, ever be filmed appropriately. You just can't. Just give it up. Reed Richards should die in a fire.
So, all right. I hear you, and I think you're wrong. And I'll tell you why. I think that if you cast just the right level of cocky arrogance, so Reed Richards is like...
Reed Richards was never a cocky, arrogant person.
Yes, he is. You really...
I mean, come on, man.
Reed Richards is arrogant, and he's like a 60s man's man kind of guy.
Man.
But the science man, he in many ways is what they turned Tony Stark into. Like he and Tony Stark are very similar characters in the comics.
I agree.
And I think
he actually has superpowers.
His superpower is super weird, but I think you can make that work because his superpower doesn't have to be his defining characteristic, because in the comics, his defining characteristic is his science. And he usually uses his stretchy powers in like a climactic moment or for like gags. But it's almost a secondary thing. In the same way that Iron Man, huge chunks of Iron Man, he's just the scientist and he's not in the suit.
Yeah. The problem I've always had, and this may sound strange, is that I can easily forego all the physics problems with almost every superhero except stretchy ones. For some reason, being stretchy, I think, well, you would have no strength.
It would be super thin. It'd be like pencil.
Yeah, that makes no sense. I have no problem with...
They're creating mass and volume in violation of the of conservation of mass and energy. It's just offensive.
I have no problem with any of the other stuff, but the stretchy stuff always...
I mean, at least the Flash has to eat a whole bunch of burgers.
It's true.
Like after he goes all fast and stuff. I mean, it's like they're like clearly caring about the world around them and the environment.
They at least try a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the last Terminator movie?
No, I managed to dodge that bullet.
So I actually think of it, Rob, as the exact same problem, where they have the whole sequence where the slimy T-1000 guy comes off of the T-1000 exoskeleton or whatever. So there's what? Are you telling me that Liquid Metal Man is hollow and so half of your mass is there?
There were some really strange choices in that movie. The biggest for me was that the whole premise of all the Terminator movies was that John Connor could...
And they killed him in the first 5 seconds.
And then they kill him in the first 3 minutes of the movie, but it doesn't matter. So,
and that didn't cripple Linda Hamilton's character for the rest of the movie,
I mean, an emotion.
What were all those other Terminators about then if this is just always going to happen?
See, and I agree with you in principle, but I will say the history of the Terminator movies is very much one of saying the events of every Terminator movie are basically saying F you to all existing canon, and they've justified it by saying the events of whatever we did in the last movie monkeyed up the future just enough that this all makes sense. Trust us.
No.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about this.
This is the disappointed sigh. I did enjoy the Doom Patrol dancing at the end and the brief view of the Green Lantern Corps, and there was some solid fun at the end, though. It's fan service for sure. And the whole segment with Lucifer and Constantine, I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm enjoying this.
Yep.
I admit
myself. They also had a lot of Brandon Routh Superman stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of sweet.
Which kind of made me feel a little bit of warm and fuzzy, because I actually kind of like that movie.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I mean, the real problem was the Lois Lane character was such a wooden board that they should have just been wheeling around on casters. You know,
but that movie was. I loved
Lex Luthor.
That was Eisenberg, right?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
That's right.
And they had what's her butt was his assistant, Miss Tessemacher.
Miss Tessemacher, yeah.
That was the girl from Best in Show who I love so much, Parker Posey.
Parker Posey, that's right.
Yeah,
another one of those Parker Posey movies. You're like, just what are you doing here? I mean, I get it. You got to pay the rent, right? But wow, what are you doing here? But I said that throughout that Superman. Honestly, I don't like Superman all that much. We've talked about this. I thought Brandon Routh, he's a very likable actor as Adam, though, and almost like too likable, So him as it was nice to see him come back as Superman,
Yeah, well, he's got a warmth. The Adam character has a warmth in the CW universe, and Superman. When Superman is successful, he also has that warmth. That's Chris Reeves.
Jesus with a cape, man.
Yeah, but you want to love the guy. You want to believe it.
Superman's the worst. Maybe I'm more of Lex Luthor than I am the common man. I just think Superman's the worst. He's just flying around, lording it all over people. Look at me. I'm going to save us from all these problems that I brought to your planet. I mean,
I hear you, but Chris Reeves era Superman is just the most lovely little thing. Have you seen the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2?
No, I would like to. Yeah, I have to admit, the one I really like though is Superman 3.
Ooh.
With
Richard Pryor.
With Richard Pryor as the computer hacker. I loved that to death. I loved that movie. Unalloyed love, right?
That movie has
it's so bad.
Possibly the image that scared me the most as a child, which is I remember I only remember being scared in movies like twice. I was scared in Empire Strikes Back when Luke was with the whole scene with Darth Vader and he's about to get thrown in the freezing system. Yep. I was totally scared there. And I remember vividly my mom telling me, it was my dad telling me, you can't be scared of this. You've already seen Return of the Jedi and he lives. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. But the other scariest moment from my childhood was watching the woman in Superman 3 being turned into a robot machine thing.
Right.
And that is dumb. It's not a good effect.
It's not a good effect. I mean, actually, I think Doom Patrol tried to mimic the quality. But anyway, but it was scary. I think it was legit scary, I don't know. If you think about it, Superman 3 was like the progenitor of every replicator storyline, every computers, AI's gone wrong, I mean, sure. But I mean, it's really pretty remarkable as a movie. Every once in a while, there'll be a movie which everyone just sort of shrugs off and doesn't think about. But when you go back and you're like, that was 1980 something, and they were doing stuff that nobody had done, And so, the whole, I love the idea of Richard Pryor just picking up a matchbook saying, "Learn to code in 30 days," and I'm like,
sure,
that's great.
That's how it works.
And he's like this native genius at it, and I was just like,
have you ever learned about what happened in the production of Superman 1 and 2?
No. Is that one of the ones where a helicopter crashed and killed a bunch of people?
No. It's a way crazier story. The Sultans got the rights to this movie, and they wanted to make it super cheap, and they couldn't make it super cheap, so they decided, let's make it super expensive. And they hired the writer from The Godfather, and they got
Marlon Brando.
But the deal was that they were going to film 2 simultaneous movies, so Superman 1 and 2, and that's how they were going to recoup all the money. But they went over budget filming the first one, and they basically had to bring in a second director to finish the first one, and then they had already shot half of the second one. So they were way over budget, but they had half a movie in the can. And then basically Gene Hackman refused to come back and work with the new directors. So they basically had to make Superman 2 with a couple of days of Lex Luthor on set and 30 minutes of footage already in the can. So Superman 2 is kind of a train wreck in a lot of ways. But if you watch the Richard Donner cut, they actually went and they found like 20 minutes of footage in one of their vaults. And then they used one scene. They used a test screen scene. There's a scene between Lois Lane and Clark Kent that's not in the movie. But they did a screen test with the two of them filming that scene. So there was one scene of a screen test, and then they cut out a couple of scenes, and then they redid really super low budget special effects for a couple of action scenes that were never actually filmed. And re-released it as you can buy it, you can download it, and it is a substantially better movie. And
Superman 2 was pretty good, even the way it shipped originally,
And it does have Kneel Before Zod, which might be the most famous line.
Yeah, right.
From almost any villain ever.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen,
in contact with Houston. I would like to speak with Houston.
But every few years I end up rewatching Superman 1 or Superman 2 for some reason, and
they had that big Lummox character as one of the bad guys.
Yeah. But no, watch the Richard Donner cut. It is worth your time.
I will actually.
It is a solid movie and a definite.
I've got a lot of plane trips coming up in the next week.
Well, the main thing is that it's kind of got the same problem as Star Wars did, right? Where A New Hope has the Death Star blow up at the end, and the problem was that was supposed to be the end of the main story, the big story. So he has a second Death Star in Return of the Jedi. Well, this has the same problem now because what do you do about the turn back time problem? That you inserted it, because the turn back time was how they duct taped not having the original ending filmed for the original Star Trek 1, because they went so far, or Superman 1, because they went so far over budget.
I hated that whole turn back time by going in orbit around space and da-da-da-da. And although I had to tell you the How It Should Have Ended YouTube channel,
it's a good one.
Constantly like teasing him about it, and it's very funny.
Gentlemen, we're at the 30-minute mark.
Amazingly.
I know.
The amount of material we had.
We are. All right. I'm going to put up the goodbye slide and say goodbye to my buddies.
All right.
This has been episode 411 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda. 411, both Prime and Information. And I would like to thank my lovely guests. But they're not here. Instead, I will thank Chris DeBona.
You're welcome, jerk. And thank you to Tom and John and Jake and whoever else is listening.
It'll be like the end of Romper Room.
Yeah, right?
Right? Rob Roseboom, who would you like to thank on our way out?
And Laszlo.
Well, I'll just point out that I wasn't scared of any Superman movie or anything like that, but I was terrified when I was very young of Romper Room, because the first time I watched it, she held up the mirror and said, "And I see you, Robert," and I freaked out. I was like, no! What kind of witchcraft is this? So anyway, that's my Romper Room star. The Terror of Romper Room.
The title of the episode. We got a title of the episode at the last minute.
I'll see you guys later.
Peace
Have
out,
a good
y'all.
weekend.